Alan, good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, nice to be with you.
Now, you're here in Dubai in the UAE for a big event taking place this week. It's a balanced scorecard event, and we've had in town this week two of the gurus of balanced scorecard, Dr. Robert Kaplan and Dr. David Norton. You've been presenting with them and training with them, and the message that you've been hammering this week is that strategic planning is absolutely critical as the global crisis hits the Middle East. Tell us why.
Well, first of all, yes, I fully agree. The challenge is businesses need to change strategy. They need to change direction. Income and growth is no longer the watchword. Productivity, cash management, surviving in a very difficult situation is the challenge. Businesses need to change their strategy. The quicker they can change and the quicker they can articulate and communicate that, the better. So that has been the big message, if you like, coming out of our conference, is how different companies are coping with the challenges that we all face now.
If we define balanced scorecard, that's the idea that the small-scale, day-to-day operations match up with sort of the strategic vision of the company. Can we give an example of, even whether you have day-to-day meetings and therefore also a good communicator at a higher level? What is a balanced scorecard?
Okay, well, what it is in basics is a strategic management tool whereby you take the strategy of an organization and convert it into something which is more specific and measurable. So it's a set of measures with performance targets and then linked into action programs, initiatives at a local level. So you are aligning people at a local level with the corporate strategy of the organization. So that's the essence of it, is alignment focused on strategy execution. By understanding what the strategy is and by translating it into local terms, you're making strategy everyone's job, and therefore you are more successfully executing the strategy that you want to.
I just want to get a hard example of it. I mean, there's some sort of basic things, but if you have a marketing strategy and a vision, does that also come down to how people answer the phones on a day-to-day basis? I mean, is that the sort of things that you're trying to get right?
It can do at an operational level, but I think one needs to distinguish between strategy and operation. Obviously, the two come together. At strategic level, you're more concerned with things like product mix. And that comes down to, at local level, when you are retailing, which products are we pushing day by day? So there's a translation all the time between what the guys on the shop floor or the customer counter are doing and what is the medium and longer term strategy of the business. The question now that people are facing is, how do we change what we need to and get it quickly down to the shop floor so that people can respond and still feel that they are aligned to what the company wants to do.
Playing devil's advocate, Alan, if I may for a second, someone may argue that, or I would argue, that Dubai in the Middle East is kind of sick of Western consultants coming along and telling us how to run our businesses. Maybe that worked until a couple of years ago, but since it's all gone so horribly wrong there, your advice is no longer needed, no longer welcome, so pack your bags and head off back to London or head off back to the United States.
I think that's a very understandable reaction. But if I put it the other way around, what I've been very encouraged to note, especially this year at the Scorecard Forum, because it's an annual event that we run, if I stand back and look at the early events we had 10 or 12 years ago, all of the case studies were from the West. Now virtually all the case studies are from the Middle East. In other words, what we've got is local organizations taking management concepts, developing them and adapting them. And I think the adaptation is a key word. So adapting them to suit local circumstance, local industries, local conditions, local culture. So it's much more a global issue rather than importing a Western idea and just religiously following a set of templates.
When you're listening to what people had to say and to present, are you finding there's a greater need for companies at a strategy level to show that they're accountable? Is that something people are calling for?
I think the word accountability is one of the buzzwords. And if you like, if I think of two buzzwords that were coming out of our discussions today, one is alignment, which we've discussed already, and the other one is accountability, and need to ensure that you have clear accountability. So that absolutely comes into the equation.
Is it, I'm just looking for examples for where things, again, the trickle down, if the strategy of management is to be more accountable, again, how is that then communicated down to all the different levels?
Well, the balanced scorecard as a concept, as a management tool, is a communication medium, because part of it is the production of regular reports, screen or paper as you like, and the communication process that goes with it. And another key theme coming out of our conference today was communicate, communicate and communicate. And that applies at a local level as much as at a top level. So the whole feature there is to ensure that people at a local operational level understand what's going on and understand their part in it, however mundane it may be, however junior it may be, and also to understand the small projects that they are developing day by day or week by week, how they fit into larger scheme of things.
To what extent are you seeing local companies employing, if you like, management best practice? Because it's all well and good giving people the tools and telling them how it works, but we all know organisations are lumbering beasts, and I've worked for big ones in London and in Dubai as well, and they have similar characteristics. They don't change. They change very, very slowly and very, very reluctantly. Are you seeing that you're getting these strategies and the balanced scorecard principles applied on the ground? Because it's not easy, is it, Alan? It's really not easy.
No, I totally agree. There are lots of challenges. People do not like to change. Most people feel change as a threat rather than an opportunity. But what we are seeing, I think, certainly what I've seen, and I've been coming to the region for 15 years now, is a sea change in management attitude and behaviour. And what you find, and we had some very good examples today, are leading local business people who are passionately committed to some of these modern concepts, and from the top level are driving it through the organisation. So you're not so much having to persuade some top management, you're actually seeing examples of top management taking the concept, being fired up and having a real visionary zeal to implement modern concepts and to improve the performance.
Let me ask you now about the banking industry, because before you became an independent trainer and consultant, you worked for many, many years in industry, and your last job was with a major international bank with a $1 billion budget and 3,000 staff. And I want to ask you, given the mess we see the global financial community in, to what extent can principles like this help banks get out of the problems that they have now, or is it something much, much bigger than a management tool?
I think the jury's out on quite what the cause is of all the problems. I know we can all point fingers, and I think collectively, with hindsight, we'll say we're all guilty to some extent of taking the eye off the ball. I think these techniques help because you can incorporate risk management. Many people would argue that risk management has been given poor shrift in recent years, as people have been too concerned about growth and over leverage rather than really understanding the risk. So certainly these sorts of techniques can and should incorporate risk, and indeed have done for many years, and I know that from personal experience. The challenge has been to get management to understand the messages coming from management reports. A balanced scorecard, or indeed any other management tool, is a tool. It's got to be used. And people sometimes don't want to hear the messages or see the messages. They want to see the graphs going up, whether or not you're getting good news or bad news. So I think there's been a degree of common delusion, and my view is that most of us have been guilty of that. We can't just blame one or two organisations or one or two politicians. That's too glib.
Well, journalists, we can blame everyone apart from ourselves. We're very good at blaming. We wrote that manual. Yeah.